44. Upper.
I am entering the Jamestowne, historic Jamestowne National Park Visitor Center. I think it's an island, but this is part of the Colonial Parkway. I will put the lavalier in just a minute. It's in the trunk. Just sit back and enjoy the ride. It is a beautiful drive down here to the visitor center on what they call the Island Loop. I may just do the whole loop before I start the actual walking tour. Well, there's a great blue heron to my left. Maybe I'll pull in this little driveway where this truck is and get the lavalier out. There's a swan to my left, and the James River Ferry to my right. Hopefully you can hear a little bit better now. I hope I didn't block this truck in. There he goes. He's getting by me. This sign here says the Isthmus. This modern road crosses to Jamestowne, about on line with a natural isthmus which existed in colonial times. The sandy strip that made Jamestowne, quote, a semi-island, unquote, was washed away in the 1700s. And the ferry is passing me to the right. In a private video for my loyalist supporters, I got some of the ferry last time. I'm not going to concentrate on it right now because I hope to ride it a little bit later. It's called the Jamestowne Scotland Ferry. It's about a 30-minute ride across the river here, and a 30-minute ride back, maybe 20 minutes. Anyway, I hope to do that after I finish exploring Jamestowne, so there'll be a lot of content made today. May not all go up today, but enjoy the view. I had a wonderful lunch at Longhorn Steakhouse. The French onion soup was not quite as good as it was at the one in Ashburn. It wasn't bad, it just wasn't the best I'd ever had, which I think the one in Ashburn qualified for. So there's the other ferry coming at us. This is the James River to my right. And I am on the Island Loop on Jamestowne Island. I'm going to do the entire loop before I check in at the visitor center and get my walking pass. Because I have a National Park Service disability access pass, I get to go on this area for free. Or sorry, no fee. Complimentary, which is a very nice benefit. And again, I thank Dr. Mabry for sending me the note to ensure that I got the pass, but then the lady at the park I went to just gave it to me because of my disabled parking plates, license plates. Even though the National Park Service website says that is not sufficient. She said, "Oh, I can't read your prescription. That's HIPAA protected." Like, well, if I'm handing it to you, I'm giving you permission to read it. Anyway, I'm glad it worked out. I think that's a camping area, so I don't want a parking area. Let's just keep going this way and see what we see. Oh, I guess maybe I don't know, maybe it comes back out there. Who knows? No buses or campus. Island Drive. Short tour, 3 miles, 5 kilometers. Anyway, you'll get to see I guess, kind of what this area looked like in the 1600s. And what I've learned through the research, and I'm not going to swear it's accurate, but I believe this was the first English settlement in what today we call the United States. I'm thinking Plymouth Rock may have been Dutch, but I'll learn more as I study today, because I'm going to, well, of course, Jamestown was the first the first real establishment in Virginia. Well, here we're going across a little creek, a little wooden bumpy bridge. I can see why this is one way. It's very, very narrow. I'm sure I can get around this bicyclist up here. I may be going faster than he is. Oh, we'll see. Only about 20 miles an hour. This was actually what they call the Jamestown suburbs. I think they called this area Newtown, and this is where the dock finally, or eventually, was built for the ships coming from England. More power to him if he wants to ride a bike around a 3-mile trail. I don't know where he came from. It's another mile or two to the gate I came through. I would prefer the vehicle at this point in my life. Beautiful little swamp grasslands to the left. I should probably pull in and read you the signs, because just looking at old growth forest probably isn't that exciting. In fact, why don't I pause it until we find something exciting? No, nothing exciting, but I figured I should turn it back on. If it stays boring, I can always edit it out. Who knows when a deer or an eagle or something will fly up from in front of me or cross the road. And I got to a little, let me just pull straight into it so the camera picks it up. And if I don't read it all, you can read it on the camera. Jamestown during the Civil War. Like much of Virginia, Jamestown felt the direct impact of the Civil War. After Virginia seceded from the Union, April 1861, Confederates pinpointed Jamestown as the best location on the James River for defending their capital in Richmond. William Allen, owner of the island, quickly raised troops at his own expense to occupy the site. Before year's end, free blacks, Allen's enslaved workers, and Confederate troops had constructed earthworks to defend the island and control river traffic. After the Confederates evacuated Jamestown in May 1862 during the Peninsula Campaign, Federal troops occupied the island, and Jamestown became a rendezvous for African American refugees. In 1865, former Confederates took the oath of allegiance to the United States of America here. Although no active engagements took place at Jamestown, vestiges of Civil War earthworks remain. So yeah, early pre-Revolutionary War history, Revolutionary War history, Civil War history. Virginia is very rich in all things history of the United States and before. I'm sure if anybody ever looked into the Native American history, it would be even a richer source of information there. Here's another sign. They're coming very quickly. I'm not going to be able to pull. Well, I don't know. Is this road? There's so many leaves, it's hard to tell where the blacktop is. This one says the changing land, and You might have a glare on the camera. A slow, steady, let me turn the car off, geological process formed the marshy Jamestowne Peninsula. About 100,000 years ago, clay, sand, and silt began building up to form the Jamestowne landmass. Ravines cut through the deposits, creating a series of ridges and swales. As the sea level gradually rose... Oh, you mean it's not a global climate changing phenomena? 100,000 years ago, the sea level was rising too, huh? The swales filled and more of Jamestown became marshland. In 1607, a narrow isthmus connected Jamestown, not yet a true island, to the mainland, but a violent mid-18th century storm washed away the isthmus and changed Jamestown once again. Even today, natural erosion and waves from river traffic continue to crumble Jamestown's riverfront. Shoreline protection built during the last 2 centuries has slowed but not stopped erosion. Our fort, or Jamestown, as yet seated in somewhat an unwholesome and sickly air, by reason if it is in a marsh ground, low and flat to the river. William Stuckey, I can't see what it says. Anyway, William somebody, looks like 1610 is what the quote at the bottom right hand side is. And off we go again around the loop. I think I just saw an animal move in that woods to my right, so I'll be careful as I go down the road that it doesn't run out in front of me. I didn't realize my GPS was still trying to get me to the visitor center. Hopefully I've turned it off at this point. Decisions. Do I want the complete tour or the short tour? Let's do the complete tour. There's a couple robins. I'll just keep turning the video off until I get to something exciting. Forgot to turn the car off again before I turn the video on. Here we go. Virginia Indians used the rich variety of tidewater plants and trees to make canoes, tools, rope, mats, beds, housing, food, and medicine. After a long ocean voyage, early colonists were understandably refreshed and astonished by Virginia's abundance. We came into a little plat of ground, George Percy recounted, full of fine and beautiful strawberries, 4 times bigger and better than ours in England. From the goodly tall trees to their fair meadows, Virginia resembled a paradise. The smaller print is the forest proved to be a treasure trove for early colonists. We wrought upon clapboard for England, reported Gabriel Archer in 1607, describing the export of what became large quantities of timber for shipbuilding, gun stocks, paneling, and shingles. They find a world of medicinal plants likewise in that country, Virginia historian Robert Beverly wrote enthusiastically. Physician Lawrence Bohun and others collected, described, and experimented with native plants like sassafras and snakeroot, developing a variety of natural medicines. See the example of split rail fencing, or is that a picnic table? I think it's split rail fencing. So here, I turned that on. It's probably protecting a grate or something. Jamestown's colonists learned to live off the land. They grew tobacco, Virginia's most profitable cash crop in the rich fertile soil along Virginia waterways, including on Jamestowne Island. They farmed the broader, flatter upland ridges after using fields cleared by Virginia Indians. Hardwoods for timber like walnut, beech, and hickory flourished. There goes another bicyclist behind me. Flourished on less arable grounds and marshlands as described by Reverend Hugh Jones. Were, quote, good range for stock in the spring, summer, and fall, and the hogs will run fat with certain roots of flags and reeds which abounding in the marshes they root up and eat, end quote. But yet today we feed them corn and put them in a mud lot. Remnants of plow rows dating from the 1930s still survive as reminders of Jamestowne's agricultural past. And the quote down in the bottom from Edward Williams looks like 1650. The ground coming to be cleared, we have a soil fit to produce whatever is excellent in nature. If you can see it, you can see, let me see if I can zoom in. You can see the different spelling in soil, we, be, back in the old days, how Old English added extra E's to a lot of things. Maybe that's why Jamestowne, historic Jamestowne, has an E on the end, whereas modern day Jamestowne does not. Well, I guess I can get in front of this truck as long as they don't decide to pull out. Doesn't look like there's anybody in it. There's a foot trail here to Black Point. Maybe I should go down there. Oh, goodness, there's the edge of the road there. Anyway, called the greatest devourer by Captain John Smith, bald eagles still feed on plentiful fish of the James River and build their nest high in trees. Stroll down the woodland trail to water's edge and you may see bald eagles soar by the river in search of a meal. Sounds like a good idea. I think I'll park. It's only 39 degrees here, but I'll transfer the camera to the selfie stick and walk down the trail, and maybe we'll get a bald eagle. I'll read this side once I get out, but let me get a little bit out of the way here, and I'll be right back. So I have exited the vehicle now. Hopefully you can still hear me all right. This sign says a site of habitation. Thousands of years ago, when the island was larger and drier, Jamestowne was more suitable for permanent habitation. In fact, archaeologists have excavated hearths from 2,000-year-old campsites. Nearby they found pottery and evidence of stone tool making. Soil core samples recovered by geologists revealed evidence of buried cornfields cultivated by American Indians long before the English arrived. That's before corn was genetically modified. It might actually have been healthy for you back then. However, by 1607, the local Paspahegh hunted and fished here, but did not occupy the island. When the colonists arrived, they presumed that the island was unoccupied, one of the prerequisites for the location of their settlement, not realizing the land was still in use. When they go hunting into the outlands, they commonly go out for the whole season with their wives and family. At the place where they find the most game, they build a convenient number of small cabins wherein they live during that season. Robert Beverly, History and Present State of Virginia, 1705. So the American Indians were what today we would call hunter-gatherers. They followed the game around and, I'm going to say, ate mostly meat, even though it does say they grew corn. If they were traveling, I don't think they were carrying that with them. Let's go down this foot trail to Black Point, and somebody's coming, so I'll cut this off right now. I'll be back with you shortly. The lady and her dog that was not on a leash just passed me. They're probably the driver of the Jeep. But you can see this is a nice, wide open, but not terribly wide walking trail. There's a bit of the marsh and the swamp over there. I really feel a lot like I'm in the Netherlands here, also known as Holland, because you're at sea level, or river level at this case, but you really can't see the water. They built a lot of dikes there in Holland to keep the sea at bay. And I felt that way driving down the loop. Like, I know there's a river over there, but it looks like there's a little bit of a berm too, so I can't really see it. But here we are heading towards it. Be right back. Here I can see the James River. I'm definitely going to have to, and there's a, not sure what that is, but it's tall and dried out right now. I have yet to see a bald eagle's nest, and I'm not really sure what these three white modern things are doing on a historic island. But see, that's what I mean. See over there how that berm is up? You really can't see the water, but at the end of it you can. That's what I was talking about being like Holland. They really ought to cover up those three pipes. They kind of take all the 1600, 1700 atmosphere away. Of course, so does this camera. I believe I'm very close to the bank here. I just love how all these pine trees are growing all along the thing, but so many roots in the walkway, it can make it difficult to walk. You're always stepping on roots. I hadn't really budgeted this part of the trip into my day. I don't know, I may have to skip Yorktown or catch it on my next trip. There's a few seabirds over there, and I'm definitely at the edge of the river here. I think those buildings over there might be the nuclear power plant at Lake Anna. Lake Anna State Park is on that lake, and the Lake Anna is basically built to cool those reactors. Virginia has a lot of nuclear power, safe nuclear power. That may be one reason their electric rates aren't quite as high as Texas. You can see there's a nest, probably for an osprey, out there on those pylons. I don't see any eagles, but I'll give you a broad angle here. I guess I can make a decision whether I want to ride the ferry or go to Yorktown. But if I go do the historic part of Jamestowne, which I plan to do while I'm here, I may not have enough time in the day, in the daylight. There's a nice barn over there to do everything I had hoped to do today. And then tomorrow is my last full day, which usually includes a lot of packing and getting the car ready. I need to pull out by about 10 a.m. Wednesday to get to North Carolina in time to start the changeover on my house sit. This is such a peaceful area. I'm definitely coming back here. And it is such a gem to have this huge national park, just peace and quiet. I'm sure in the summer there's a lot of boats out here on the river. Yeah, I'm probably right on that being a nuclear plant. Look at those transcontinental feeds going out. So that's how they get the power from the plant. And what is that over there? It's something tall. I don't know if it's a bridge or cranes, or if you can even see it. But I'll pause this now and walk back. Unfortunately, didn't see any bald eagles or any eagle nests today. There's a little propeller plane flying over right now, but this is the view back from the edge of the river, the bank. See what I mean about these roots sticking up? I only have tennis shoes on. I do have boots in the car, but I didn't really plan on getting out and taking a walk. But in the future, I think I should really wear them because these can wear on your feet, even with the sneakers on. I'm back in the car now. Mercy me, I got a bit chilly out there. It's, let's see, 39. I wanted to get this little bridge. I guess if the park trucks go across this, I shouldn't have any concern about it falling apart, but it's just a wooden bridge. It's really not, even if you fell, it's just a little bit of a creek. Well, it's probably a wash. It's probably tidal, you know, as the tide comes in, it goes up and down. It is 41 degrees is what my car thermometer says right now, but wow, boy, what a beautiful spot. I'll be right back. At the next pullover here is a sign that says an ancient planter. Captain John Smith called William Spence, quote, an honest, valiant, and industrious man, end quote. Others referred to him as a gentleman, laborer, and ensign. A Jamestowne resident since 1608, Spencer served as a member of the newly formed House of Burgesses, Virginia's first legislative assembly in 1619. In 1614, Deputy Governor Sir Thomas Dale tried to encourage expansion of the colony by allotting acreage to tenant farmers. As an ancient planter, parenthesis, a colonist who paid for his own passage and arrived in Virginia before 1616, William Spence received 100 additional acres just east of Jamestowne Island at Archer's Hope in 1616. The quote down in the bottom, it says, to such as to Virginia do purpose to repair, and when they shall thither come, each man shall have his share. Richard, what is that? Ruth, 1625, I think. I passed my driving test, I passed my vision test, but that small print is difficult to see. In fact, Dad sent me an email this morning telling me that on our phone call last night he forgot to tell me that my permit arrived. He calls a driver's license a driving permit. And he's actually right, because driving is a privilege, not a right, so it is a permit to drive. That's just a little bit of police lingo thrown in there. This video is getting rather long, and I'm sure there's parts I need to edit out, but this may be the only... This may go... let me rephrase that. This may go up as a video on its own, but I'm going to turn it off so I can let the heat run, because I am rather cold. Let me turn this heater off. I thought I was getting back to where the short route cut through, so I cut the video back on, but it's just another sign here. I did see this on the map. Let me turn the car off. Again, my apologies. This one's kind of facing the sun. This is the Travis estate from the 1630s into the 19th century, which would be the 1800s. The Travis family owned this part of Jamestowne Island. If you follow the trail, you will find gravestones from their family cemetery. The Travis home stood nearby. As cold as I got following that last trail, I didn't see any eagles. I believe I'm just going to stay in the car and keep driving while I decide whether I go back down to the fort site or maybe just go straight to Yorktown. Apparently this is where the short loop comes back in, so we have finished the longer loop part, and now we'll finish up the shorter loop part. I won't even turn it off. Here's another pull-off. Fortunately, with the sun behind me. I still won't read it all because I don't have any drinks with me. For being an Eagle Scout, I'm not terribly prepared on this. Of course, when you're close to town, you don't always think about stuff like, oh, I need to take a drink with me. Let's see here. Sorry, if I zoom in, you can't see the whole sign. Again, I forgot to cut the car off and take it out of gear. Fences and ditches. Captain John Smith wrote in 1629 that, quote, ... for goats, hogs, and poultry, they, parenthesis, colonists, end parenthesis, have so much more than they spend. They are able to feed 300 or 400 men more than they have. End quote. Most of this livestock roam free and often destroyed crops unprotected by stout fencing. The Virginia Assembly repeatedly instructed residents to enclose gardens and orchards. If a marauding hog laid waste to an unfenced pumpkin patch, the offended party had no redress. Today, ditches and berms, slightly raised ground, are all that remained of enclosures that once divided much of the islands into fences, fields, and pastures. quote at the bottom, every man shall enclose his ground with sufficient fences upon their own peril. Even when the country started, the government was telling people what to do. The, quote, island house, end quote. To the right, just beyond this narrow marsh, lay the 80-acre island house tract, which was, quote, planted and seated, end quote, prior to 1619 by Richard Kingsmill, quote, ancient planter, unquote, which we just learned that a planter was somebody that came over in one of the first ships. Burgess and man of property and affairs. His daughter Elizabeth and her husband Nathaniel Bacon. Bacon is a famous person from Jamestowne. Later sold it to Nicholas Merriweather, an ancestor of Meriwether Lewis, one of the great Western explorers. Remember Lewis and Clark? That went all the way, I think, to the Pacific. So I guess they got their start here in Virginia, their grandparents or great-grandparents or something like that. I didn't even cut the car off because there's two signs in this little pull-off. I guess they're making up for lost time because I don't think there's as much information on this shorter loop than there was on the longer loop. So let's see here. Plants from the past. Scientists and scholars work together to gain a better understanding of Jamestowne. Paleobotanists who study plant materials from the past have added some fascinating pieces to the Jamestowne puzzle. What sorts of plants were common at 17th century Jamestowne? Excuse me. When digging a ditch near here, English colonists unknowingly created a perfect environment for preserving pollen. Paleobotanists have extracted and studied samples that tell us that oak and pine trees, field grains, and ragweed all grew near here. Where did colonial physicians study and process medicinal plants? When archaeologists excavated an early trash pit near an apothecary's house in Newtown, which is on this part of the island, the new town where the dock was, they found sedge and wax myrtle seeds, plants used to treat ailments like dysentery. Undoubtedly, Virginia Indians taught colonists how to use some of these native plants. Very interesting. I'll turn it back on because I like all these little pine. They're not really seedlings, but they're youngsters growing right here along the road at this point. This is apparently the last sign on the tour because I just passed a sign that said to end the tour, stay right. If you wanted to redo it, go left. This is about the early African residents. John Rolfe wrote in 1619 that a ship docked at Point Comfort and offloaded, quote, not anything but 20 and odd Negroes, which the governor, Sir George Yeardley, and Cape merchant Adam Piercy bought for victualli. It is uncertain whether the new arrivals were indentured servants or enslaved Africans. We know that Governor Yeardley owned property here along the Back River. I guess that's what's behind me. Or, I'm sorry, in front of me, behind the sign. And that his household in 1625 included 3 African men and 5 African women among his 24 servants. In 1995, archaeologists identified the sites of 2 early 17th century dwellings along this stretch of road. Perhaps Yardley's servants included some of the first Africans brought to Virginia, lived right here. Another interesting fact. I think I'm going to go into the visitor center, get a pass which would allow me to go to the historic site, but just read some of the stuff in the visitor center. Then I'll probably go back to the condo, get today's video uploaded, while I let this one load up to Google Photos, so then tonight I can download it and edit it and post it tomorrow as just the Island Loop Road tour. I'll probably have to do the Jamestowne historic site on another trip, and then maybe later this afternoon. It's 1 o'clock now. I guess it's a good thing I had an early lab appointment to get my blood drawn. Then I can go to Yorktown after I have warmed up a tad, maybe go across into the hot tub and get real warm. We'll see. But yeah, I think I'll go into the visitor center here and just read some of the signs. I'll keep this running. Maybe this is to the right is what they call the back river. Can I get in here? Looks like it, except I just about went past the road. I'd come in from the other end the other day. What does this say? Bus unloading or loading and RV parking. Yeah, here's where I need to go to park. Except I want to go around and let you see the visitor center from the front. Typical National Park Service building, even though maybe this one's a little more modern than a lot of them. The brown signs always designate park status in the U.S. Let me get out here a little further so we can see the whole sign. Tells you where to go here. And maybe I'll stop at the glass house on the way out, as I have not been to that yet. Am I going to make this turn, or am I going to bump the curb? I made the turn. How about that? This car handles very well. It sounds like I need a little bit of power steering fluid, though. Here's the visitor center and film, the original 1607 fort, archaeology and museum, guided tours, and the Dale House Cafe. I guess I could have eaten here, but I wanted that hamburger at Longhorn. And there's one spot right here at the front. When you come in from the other end, they try to have you avoid driving through this circle. So I will finish the video here at my entrance to the visitor center. Historic Jamestowne, America's birthplace, so maybe this was the first permanent settlement. Maybe it was before Plymouth Rock. I'll ask somebody about that, but I'm going to wrap up for now. If you made it this far and don't know who I am, I'm Chip. The channel is Chillin' with Chip. I have a second channel which you can find at the Koji link at the bottom called CP59 Fit, where I talk about healthy aging or unconventional healthy aging strategies. This has been a longer video than I expected. Let's get the flag and the pine trees and the parking lot and just a circular view here. I guess that's the employee parking over there. And we will call this video a wrap, and I'll get it edited, hopefully down to 30 minutes or less, but we'll see. And I'll make another one at Yorktown this afternoon. God bless. Bye-bye.